Right, good evening. Thank you very much for joining us tonight on the bottom line. Of course, you get the best business analysis right here on this show across the airwaves. Whenever it's Monday evening, you want to tune in and join us right here on the show with me, Kwesi Efriye. Tonight, we have a number of issues to discuss in the energy sector, which are very topical in the country now, and we are happy to be hosting the Deputy Minister of Energy and Member of Parliament for the Second D constituency, Honorable Egyapa Mercer. We'll be asking him a number of questions. Is the $1 billion actually missing? Or $100 million actually missing? Can't we find the money as a minority is putting across, and PIAC is also putting across? We'll be talking about the GENSA negotiations. You remember the power purchase agreement, which the MPP came into power and said that they have renegotiated some and cut some, saving the country lots of money. Are we seeing a new power purchase agreement of the same sort which they spoke about before they came into power and when they came into power? Well, these are many things that we are going to talk about tonight, and I'm sure you can join the conversation on our phone lines, which we are scrolling on the screen, via SMS and WhatsApp messages. You can put your messages across on our Facebook post as well. You want to stick and stay with us. When I come back from this short break, I'm here in the studio with Honorable Egyapa Mercer. Stay with us. Right, so you're welcome back from the break. This is the bottom line. Let me welcome my guest here in the studio tonight, and we are privileged to be having Honorable Egyapa Mercer, Member of Parliament for the Second D constituency and Deputy Minister of Energy. My very good friend, thank you very much for joining us, Honorable.
Always a pleasure.
It's been a while.
Yes, it is.
I hope you're doing well.
His grace has been sufficient upon our lives.
Too many issues happening in your ministry lately. $100 million missing, the deal with GENSA. But let me start with the GENSA deal and what exactly it is. I have a script here which I wanted to pick just a bit of it. It says, the minority in Parliament is demanding a detailed report on an agreement between the Ghana National Petroleum Corporation, GNPC, and a US-based Ghanaian-owned energy company, GENSA Energy Holdings. It explained that the conditions of the deal, in which GENSA committed to pay a reasonable price for gas to power embedded power plants it leased to various large mines and consumers in the cement and ceramic industries, must be interrogated. So it goes on with the details of the investigations, and the CEO of ISEP has been speaking. Let's listen to him, and then I'll come back to you, Honorable, briefly.
I mean, we have a contract that says that GNPC is going to sell gas to GENSA at the cost of $2.79. And they themselves, in the same contract, indicates the discount that they are giving to GENSA. I didn't write that in the agreement. It's GNPC that agreed with GENSA to discount that gas at $3.26. And then they're saying that if they do a further extension of the pipeline, they'll give them further discount to bring the gas to $1.72. I didn't write that in the agreement. So these are specific numbers that we are raising concerns about. So if the honorable member thinks that those numbers don't exist in the contract, or they have a different contract, he could speak to those specifics and let us protect the interest of the state by looking at those numbers.
Right.
All right. So for us, we don't see why that discount should be given to a private company, because these companies are competing with other players in the space. We have VRA generating power and buying at 6.08. And that 6.08, you and I pay for the full cost through the power that is generated. Now, the company that buys the gas and sells to mining companies rather gets a discount, all right, and outcompete all the power sector agencies. And now they are the ones supplying power to the mines. Because of that, VRA has lost 40 megawatt contract with the mines. ECG has also lost 20 megawatts contract with the mines. So together, the state has lost 60 megawatts. And then you have the same politicians coming to tell us there's excess capacity. Why would there not be excess capacity when you are discounting the gas for private people to go and sell to the mines and dislodge state enterprises, and then the loss come and hit the state? Just 2 weeks ago, ENI drew down on Ghana's letters of credit because we couldn't pay for the gas that we are buying. $180 million was drawn down on Ghana's letters of credit with Standard Chartered Bank. And somebody is selling the gas at 2.79, and the Honorable doesn't have anything to say than to accuse those who are raising concerns with why we are sacrificing the budget for some of these inefficient spending.
Right.
I think we have to be serious about how we engage on policy matters and allow the facts to speak for themselves in some of these conversations. We would look at the matters that have been raised by the committee and respond appropriately. We will continue to engage on the facts and the agreement that has been signed. We will not reduce this conversation to accusations and pointing fingers. We have no interest but the state's interest.
Right.
And let everybody come around and let's interrogate the numbers. And we still stand by the fact that the discount that we are providing to GENSA is $1.5 billion. If you look at its impact on the total energy sector, you're looking at about $3.6 billion. So that has to be explained away. What are we getting in return for that kind of subsidy that we are granting to a private company? And I don't think we should allow politicization or accusation or insult to divert attention from that reality. That if we allow this to stand, you and I will have to pay for it. Okay? And we don't have to allow that to happen. We need to open up the conversation and let GMPC answer the question. And in fact, the presentation that I've seen that GMPC did to Parliament, in fact, that presentation is different from the contract and raises even far more questions, at this moment, and we'll respond appropriately.
Right, so $1.5 billion, according to the director of ASEP, and $3.6 billion in total, if you look at it in aggregation. Let me come to you. What are we getting? That's what he asked. I'll ask the same question. What are we getting as a country? We can't lose that amount of money.
Let me say good evening to our cherished viewers and listeners as well, who have taken time off their busy schedules to listen to us this evening. It's interesting that this whole conversation about the GENSA transaction was premised on a tweet that my good friend Bright Simmons tweeted, and if you permit me, I will quote. So the best way to obtain the right answer on the internet is not to post a question, but to deliberately put out the wrong answer. It's interesting because there's indeed a lot to be said about this GENSA transaction and how it's been put out there in the media to create a certain impression. Partly facts, partly fiction, partly gross exaggerations, and to say the least, figment of people's imagination. Unfortunately, I'm just coming from Mines and Energy Committee meeting of Parliament. They have, based on the reportage that came out, commenced some probe of sorts into the matter, and the chairman of the committee was categorical about his displeasure with this matter being played out in the public domain. And so it will be responsible on my part as Deputy Minister for Energy to come and sit out here when the committee hasn't concluded its work, to seek to make comments on them that would, in a sense, prejudice the outcome of the probe that the Committee of Parliament has commenced. So I would crave your indulgence. This obviously is a developing matter. We are not at the end of it. Of course, I am aware that GMPC, when they appeared before the committee, put out some responses to deal with some of the issues that had been raised by the CSOs that some people are seeking to play political chascalia as usual. And so I will urge that we allow the committee to do its work. And when they conclude and submit their report, we all can interrogate it and see where the issues are. But I'm clear in my mind, okay? Because listening to my good friend
Ben watching.
Ben, he makes the point that discounts were given, as if to say there was no consideration whatsoever for those discounts that were given. But if you look in the agreement, it was essentially a pre-financing transaction that GENSA was undertaking, for which a discount on the gas that they were buying, and we are talking 20 million scarves of gas, only 20 million scarves, okay, was going to be used to defray the investment cost that they were incurring over a period of time. And so to suggest that GENSA got a discount without making it clear for the people of Ghana to understand that indeed that discount was to enable them recover their investment in the pipeline that they were constructing for and behalf of the state, if you like, or the agency that contracted them. I think it will be pretty much. I don't want to use the word disingenuous, but it doesn't speak to the entirety of the issues at stake.
But to establish the facts, I agree that we shouldn't go ahead of the committee in its work. But to establish the facts, there is a discount which you agree to.
No doubt. Nobody has denied it. GMPC, when they appeared before the committee, they gave a basis why the discount was given.
And that amounts to $1.5 billion.
You see, even that, I don't want to go into the details because
I mean,
just this evening,
the discount given, GENSA, for the operations that they have engaged in.
No, not a problem at all.
That amounts to $1.5 billion.
That assessment itself is based on a scenario analysis that is informed by several assumptions. Okay? Depending on what scenario that you, and based on the assumptions that you make, it could be way lower a figure or much higher. Okay, but like I said, it's important that we allow the Committee of Parliament to do its work, submit its report to the plenary, and then we can all debate and interrogate the issues to see whether there's wrongdoing on anybody's part. And indeed, if there is, I am the last person to say that let's hold people to account. Okay? By all means, let's do so. But until then, we put out information out there. We need to put out the totality of the information so people can draw their own conclusions, not create a certain sense that somebody is giving. And I don't know where this Ghanaian-based or US-based Ghanaian company is coming from.
But GENSA is a US-based Ghanaian company.
How is it a US-based Ghanaian company? I have a copy of the agreement that was signed between GNGC and GENSA. It's GENSA Energy Ghana Limited. How is that Ghanaian-owned? I don't even know the description that they put to it, but really, I mean, to
the description is a US-based Ghanaian-owned.
What does that mean?
Energy company.
What does that mean? This is a Ghanaian incorporated company, yet you describe it as a US-based Ghanaian-owned company. Where's the truth in that? But Akwesi,
yes.
You know I like to argue and debate on the substantive matters in issue. But on this particular one, spare me. Because I don't want to be in contempt of my very learned senior, the attaché of Chebi, who is the chairman of the committee.
But allow me to ask you the very last one about the loss of some 40 megawatts on the part of VRE and some 20 megawatts
I don't even know where it's coming from.
This is the one that could easily be done by ECG and VRE.
But of course, this mining enclave power generation contracts that GENSA has. It's from 2013. It is not contracts that were signed yesterday. So all of a sudden, it's become an issue.
Has this been in operation since 2013?
Absolutely.
Or the contract documents
I'm saying that
in existence?
The GENSA's power distribution to the mining enclave commenced as far back as 2013. Of course, it started with one and it grew. Now I believe they have 3 plants.
If they started
So
in
really, where does the connection between, and of course, they were running on some other fuel source.
Yes.
Until they went to Ghana Gas initially to negotiate for some lean gas, and subsequently to GMPC that they finally contracted with. So really, the talk about, as if to say that this is some transaction that
so if you started
has just
in 2013,
happened,
how
and that
are we
was
giving
depriving
them discounts worth 1.5 billion now?
Like I said, they were.
And
I will see you are drawing me. You are
3.6
drawing me
billion.
gradually into contempt
I'm
territory.
not. I'm only trying to put out few statements so that we can run away from
you are
it.
drawing me into contempt territory. I'm saying that Gensa was running on some alternative source.
Since 2013.
Yes, when they
And
started.
in 2021, 2022, we decided to give them a discount amounting to.
No, not at all. They had this arrangement with Ghana Gas, I believe, in 2017 or 18. That then, based on some policy directives, they went to GMPC, who obviously is the owner of the commodity, to buy the gas from. And they were asked to build some pipeline in excess of what they themselves needed, which came at extra cost that they needed to pay for. And so the negotiation was to reimburse them for the cost that they incurred by giving them a discount on the gas. We can debate whether the discount was
Relevant.
excessive.
Its
Relevance is not in doubt. As to whether it was excessive or commensurate, that will be for the committee to make a determination. Then,
And that is what
can
we
all
want to
come-
leave for the committee.
Absolutely, yes.
So, let me allow you. Once you have stated that there is a committee working on it, of course, a meeting of which you are just coming out of. I would allow you. I'm sure when the committee's report come, we'll come back to you in the office. You always open your doors to us. We'll come back to you in the office to be asking you.
You can count on that.
To be asking you the details of it. But let me now move to, is it $100 million that's been missing? And this one says $100 million of Ghana's oil money missing. Minority raises alarm. The minority in parliament has sent a stern warning to the Minister of Finance, Ken Ofori-Atta, to repatriate all funds accrued from the oil revenue into the Petroleum Holding Fund. According to the minority, government is acting contrary to the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, PRMA, as revenues are not being paid into the fund. The caucus alleged that monies accruing from oil sales from the Jubilee and 10 fields are being transferred to an offshore account. Just before you come in, I have a bite from former Minister, Deputy Minister of Power, Honorable John Jinapo. Let's have that bite and we'll come back to you.
The Petroleum Revenue Management Act, the Public Financial Management Act is explicit, it's clear that all funds, and I mean all funds, accruing from our oil fields, be it sale of crude oil, royalties, taxes, and surface rentals, should be lodged in the Petroleum Holding Fund on the 15th day of the preceding month. And government, representing the people of Ghana, exercised its right and purchased or procured 7% additional shares in the Jubilee and 10 fields. And so those resources or shares belongs to the state and the people of Ghana. Therefore, any attempt to establish an offshore company and transfer same revenues to that offshore company is illegal, is unconstitutional, and an affront to the PRMA. Bear in mind, GMPC appeared before our committee, and when we inquired of this amorphous company known as Jubilee Oil Holdings Limited, they told us that that was just a temporary company as a conduit for the 7% to be transferred to GMPC. So why are they now receiving revenues? That is most unfortunate. We would not accept that, and we use every legitimate means in Parliament to ensure that this wrong is corrected. It was done on the blind side of Parliament. This company was established without parliamentary approval. We had to use our internal and external sources to get information on that. And like I told you, When they appeared before Parliament, we queried them, and they said they were going to rectify it, only for them to start transferring revenues. Parliament is on recess, and so we are demanding that immediately those funds should be reversed and lodged into the Petroleum Holding Fund. Failure to do so, anytime Parliament resumes, we shall use all the parliamentary processes to hold the minister before Parliament and hold him liable and accountable for this infraction.
That's the former Minister of Power in the erstwhile NDC government. And President or former President John Dramani Mahama has made a statement on this amount of money missing too. And I'll try and read the statement to you. It says, news that some $100 million has been diverted from petroleum funds for unapproved expenditure is most disconcerting. Section 3 of the PRMA Act 815, is explicit that all petroleum revenue due to the Republic derived from whatever source shall be assessed, collected, and accounted for by the Ghana Revenue Authority. Now, Section 15 of the Petroleum Exploration and Production Act 919, is also clear that any borrowing exceeding the cedi equivalent of 30 million United States dollars for the purpose of exploration, development, and production shall be approved by Parliament and shall be in consonance with the Petroleum Revenue Management Act. There can be no justification for diverting revenues accruing from the nation's share of petroleum resources into any other account aside the PHF. The Minister for Finance must, as a matter of urgency, repatriate all such illegal payments back into the PHF without delay, as there is no record to confirm parliamentary approval on any such loans acquired by GNPC in their work program. John Dramani Mahama, signed. Let me come back to the studio and then back to you. $100 million missing. Offshore account. Where is the money?
It's unbelievable the kinds of allegations that we make for political expediency. Why do
you say?
You read the PIAC report.
I've seen the PIAC report, not the entire report.
Is there anywhere in the report that is suggested that some money is missing?
PIAC says there is $731 million from oil production in the first half of 2022, but worried over missing cash.
Is that what the PIAC report says?
This is a report
It's important that you quote the report, okay? Because if you don't do that,
yes,
to expose the mischief in the political commentary that is emanating from the ranking member of the Mines and Energy Committee and the former president, then Ghanaians don't get to appreciate the truth. Look, in the first place, hold on. Yes, please, if you may.
Let me quote that's the particular statement. It says, following the acquisition of 7% interest in the Jubilee and 10 fields by GNPC in 2021, later ceded to its subsidiary JOHL, that's Jubilee Oil Holding Limited. JOHL made its first lifting of 944,164 BBLS on the Jubilee field in the first half of 2022, amounting to 100.74 million. This amount was not paid into the Petroleum Holding Fund, a situation PIAC is hoping to get it resolved by close of year or before publishing its full year report, he noted.
You see, you are actually reading commentary because on page 23 of the PIAC report, and you can go to the executive summaries, also repeated there. What it says is that following the acquisition of 7% interest in the Jubilee and 10 fields by GNPC in 2021, later ceded to its subsidiary JOHL. And that statement itself is inaccurate. And I will demonstrate to you why.
All right.
JOHL made its first lifting of 944,164 barrels on the Jubilee field in H1 2022, amounting to 100,748,907.95. This amount was not paid into the PHF. That's where the report ended. So I'm saying to you that PIAC itself recognizes that it is JOHL that received these funds. Correct? Because if you made the liftings,
Yes.
then it
You have
stands to
received the
reason
funds.
that JOHL received the funds. Their worry is that in their interpretation, those funds ought to have been paid into the petroleum holding funds. Now, how does anybody then construe this to mean that the money is missing when we know where the money is?
Where is the money? Is it in?
It's with JOHL, yes. So how can anybody, knowing where the money is, suggest that the money is missing? You see, there are some inaccuracies that we need to set the record straight.
Right.
GNPC did not establish JOHL. It did not. GNPC actually bought 100% shares in JOHL. No. It bought 100% of JOHL.
Okay, right.
JOHL was actually established by Anadaku. And I'll give you the background. We received correspondence from Cosmos and Anadaku that they have negotiated an acquisition by Cosmos of Anadaku shares in Jubilee and 10 for a specified amount. Okay? And so they were seeking the consent and concurrence of the Ministry of Energy and GNPC to effect the transfer. Now, in the conversation, Ghana decided that we're going to acquire part of the shares. So Ghana negotiated with Anadaku to offload 7% of that to the government of Ghana. Now, they had agreed a certain time frame to conclude the transaction. But GNPC was not ready. And so, in order not to stall the transaction between Anadaku and Cosmos, Anadaku carved out the 7% share that they were selling, of the total that they were selling to Cosmos, and incorporated JOHL in the Cayman Islands to hold those shares.
Why was GNPC not ready?
Because they didn't have the money. So they needed to negotiate with government to lend them some money to pay. But I'm saying that Anadaku and Cosmos' transaction were time-bound. Okay? But that really is of no consequence. No,
they have come to...
No, hold on. It's really of no consequence. So those shares were actually held by JOHL as fully owned company of Anadaku. So when GNPC paid, then they transferred the entirety of the 100% shares in the Cayman Islands company. To GNPC. But it is being suggested out there that Ghana National GNPC acquired the shares in and of itself and transferred it to Jubilee Holdings. That is inaccurate.
But first of all, let's go back to why GNPC wasn't ready when Cosmos and Anadaku had approached them and government, and they knew that this was going to go on. They had expressed interest. When the 7% shares was ready to be sold off, why was GNPC not ready?
Well,
why did they have
like
to
I've
take
told you,
Anadaku to set up JOHL and now come to pay and take over? Is it not clumsy for you?
It's really irrelevant. Okay, so you can relate it to daily transactions. Somebody is selling this 20 pieces of mangoes across, of course. These are not mangoes, right? Somebody is buying 15 of them. You want to buy 5. You don't have immediately money to buy 5. You need to go home and go and get your 5 CD.
But
you're saying that the 15 pieces transaction should wait for you to go home and bring your money before they conclude. But they've reserved the 5 for you. So I'm saying that
you're my father.
I'm saying
you know that there is a 5 that is to be sold, and I have expressed interest, which you agree, which you have consented to. I am going to come to you for the money.
I will say let's not dwell.
I have to be able to quickly
let's not
run
dwell
to you.
on the essentially trivialities. Okay,
That's fine.
Because the point that I'm making is that the carving out of the 7% and setting up the entity JOHL was to protect the acquisition that GNPC was making.
The interest of GN.
Absolutely.
Right, that's fine.
And so really, that should be the issue that should be of concern to us. But that share was acquired. GMPC, of course, intended to offload it to Exploco. In fact, at the time of the acquisition, they wanted to use Exploco as a vehicle to do the acquisition. Okay? Just so that they can separate it from what it is that GMPC itself holds, with a view to building the capacity of Exploco into operatorship. The reason why they were seeking to buy the stake in the ACA transaction, if you recall. Okay? So to suggest that some vehicle was set up by GMPC to acquire the shares, and no, that's really not what happened. Okay? But to the substantive point.
Yes.
GMPC itself, as of 2017, until Ghana Gas was hived off GMPC, okay, to be a standalone company, had 3 subsidiaries. GNGC, Exploco, which was established during Mr. Mohammed's time, and GOSCO, all with clearly defined mandates under the Companies Act. Correct?
Yes, I agree.
GMPC is a creature of statute, established under PNDC law, I believe 84 or 86. These 3 companies were all incorporated under the Companies Act. So their governance structure and their operations is completely different from
GNPC.
Absolutely. And so what it is that the governance structure that JOHL, which is now also a subsidiary of GMPC, 100% owned, Exploco and GOSCO, is to pay dividends to its parent company. It is that dividend that then, because it becomes income to GMPC, goes into the petroleum holding funds. That is the explanation that GMPC has proffered. And obviously, Piak disagrees. I support the GMPC position.
Why do you support GMPC?
Because if they are incorporated under the Companies Act, their indirect revenue that the Petroleum Revenue Management Act will be dealing with is their dividends, not their income. Because this interest itself is a commercial interest that they ought to pay cash calls as their contribution to the production expenditure and even development expenditure on a monthly basis. So it is when they audit their accounts that they then pay dividends to GMPC that then goes into the petroleum.
But so as we speak, are you telling me that JOHL has $100 million?
Of course, out of which they have expended some of them.
They've expended how much?
Of course, they paid the loan that the government of Ghana gave them to buy the shares from Anadaku.
How much?
I believe they paid $60 million out of that, for that amount. And the government of Ghana gave them in excess of 169 million.
But you're here, you're telling me.
So the point that I'm making is this.
I'm coming. You are saying that this was a creature of Anadaku, JOHL.
Yes.
Was initially a creature of
Yes.
Anadaku.
Yes. 100% owned.
100% owned.
Yes.
By Anadaku.
Yes.
Now, when GNPC made the payments,
Yes.
which they were supposed to, about the $60 million,
So they paid 169, I believe.
$169 million,
Yes, for the 7% in
ownership,
both Jubilee and 10.
ownership of JOHL was now transferred to
To
GNPC.
GMPC, yes. So it became a subsidiary of GMPC.
How then will JOHL operate on its own when it has become, or when it has been ceded off to GNPC? And payments are made to JOHL without the knowledge of GNPC. And here we are now saying, or going to the Registrar General's Department and, visiting the Companies Act and Companies Law.
There's no issue.
Yes,
Okay?
yes.
JOHL is operating under the same principles as Exploco, a subsidiary of GMPC, is operating.
And this is exactly why I started by asking,
hold on.
why should it have been that Anadaku should set up JOHL when GMPC had the capacity?
I keep going back that, for me, the relevance of that question really, if you look at the transaction history, there was a question of timing, that they had a specific time frame to complete the transaction. At the time, GMPC did not have the money. And this thing happened within a matter of a month or two. This whole transfer of shares from Anadaku to Cosmos and GMPC's interest which was spearheaded by the Minister of Energy, Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh, to acquire part of that share, took place in a matter of months. 2 months, max. And so at the time, GNPC did not have the balance sheet to support the acquisition. So Anadako creates a vehicle to set aside their shares to protect it for GNPC. What's the issue there, really?
Why would Anadako do that?
Because they had agreed to sell that share to GNPC.
So if I've agreed to sell you a share and you're not ready, how am I supposed to, or how is it incumbent upon me to set up a vehicle to protect the shares for you?
I keep ownership.
With what interest?
Of course, for all intents and purposes, I receive, unless, of course, you are not conversant with transactions of this nature, but it's really normal and common. Okay, it's a share purchase transaction. The entity was selling a greater number of shares. You have indicated an interest to buy some of it. Even in normal daily stock exchange transactions, brokers hold shares for people to pay for them, and then they are transferred to them. It's pretty normal. Okay, so really that transaction itself, arm's length, no issue whatsoever. The issue that people are raising in PIAC, and of course, it's within their legitimate rights. Indeed, and in fact, consistently over the years, if you check the PIAC report, they have always been of the view that every single revenue that Ghana Gas generates, to the extent that it is petroleum funds, ought to be paid into the petroleum holding fund.
That's never done. That's what the access.
No, but you see, I keep.
You are a lawyer. I mean, we will take education from you on this.
I go back.
That's what the act says.
No,
that's what the act says.
That's not what the act says. The act says that, and in fact, the GNPC Act empowers it to set up subsidiary companies under the Companies Act. Okay, GNGC was set up as a subsidiary of GNPC under the Companies Act. Any subsidiary company then pays only dividends, not its revenue, to its parent company.
To GNPC?
Absolutely.
And now GNPC pays to where?
To the petroleum fund, because every revenue that accrues to GNPC, whether directly or indirectly, okay, and these dividends would be indirect receipts that GNPC then gets for its operations. That goes into the petroleum holding funds. But the subsidiary's own revenue doesn't go in there.
So you're a minister that sits in all of this. In fact, all of these come to you and to your table. Could this not have been averted? Now, all the brouhaha, all the discussions that we are having here today, because UHL has had to be set up, and Adako and Cosmos were ready, GNPC wasn't ready. We know that payments of petroleum monies have to be paid into the petroleum fund and so on and so forth. And now we are not going through a whole circle of pay to me dividends or operate on your own, pay your debts, and then bring to me dividends, and now transfer the dividends from my account to the fund and so on and so forth. Could we not have averted?
I would say nothing has happened that requires any action to have averted it. This is how much I do about nothing. Of course, PIAC is an independent body that has been created by law. They have a view. That doesn't make their view gospel. Okay, they take the position. And I suggested a short while ago when I was having another show that it may be useful to subject the interpretation of this provision to the test by our courts. Okay? So that we bring finality and clarity to this matter. Because like I've made mention of earlier, PIAC consistently believes that Ghana Gas's revenue, and indeed in this report they cite it, ought to go into the petroleum holding funds. But Ghana Gas is a limited liability company. Okay? And the law enjoins it only to dispose of its income to shareholders by way of dividends. So how do you expect it to pay all its revenue into a certain fund, which its enabling legislation does not allow it to? I don't understand.
Let me take one or two messages. I'll go for a quick break and come back. This one is from Nana Ikuya Barton. He says, "Good evening, Kosi. First time I hear of this bogus claim from the minority that $100 million oil money is missing. I know this is a hoax and should be discarded. The NDC led by John Mahama is noted for spreading fake news. Nana Ekuyamo Abuatin, Ablekuma Central sent in that one. Salisu, Secretary SS from Power, Uti region says, what is the work of GNPC? What is the work of TOR? We employ CEOs, pay them with taxpayers' money. Well, too many messages coming up. But we benefit these institutions. Honorable should tell us why. I'm sure you want to write, we don't benefit from these institutions. Kwasi, good evening. This your program today is incomplete without the presence of somebody like Mr. John Jinapo. It's a problem. Mr. Minister can say anything and get away with it without putting into scrutiny by someone who also know the background of everything that is going on. I believe that we are doing the layman's job, putting the questions to him because we have documents here to speak to. You know, but of course, well noted that we have to bring in Mr. John Jinapo or somebody else from the other side. You know why you are seated? Well, I will not take this one. See how? No. Andrew Kofi, this is a very business program. We talk about economics. We haven't seen anything yet under this government. Well, you didn't add your name. So many messages coming out. So, in summary, there is no offshore account. Is that what you're saying? Has money been paid into any?
JOHL itself is still in the process of evolving because it was registered as an external company in accordance with our law sometime in August.
So there is an offshore account?
There's no offshore account. Whatever funds...
JOHL has an account.
Hold on. I was giving you a background. Then I answer your question. My understanding is that JOHL's liftings, okay, were paid into one of GNPC's account with Ghana International Bank.
Ghana International Bank?
Yes.
Where?
Ghana International Bank, obviously you are asking me where. You are a business news presenter. Of course, Ghana International Bank is a Ghanaian government-owned bank in UK.
So the money is in UK?
It was paid into that account.
The $100 million is in UK?
Of course, that the $100 million I've indicated to you.
In fact, it's
that they made cash calls for Jubilee and 10
$100.74 million.
operations up to about 64.22 million. They've made a repayment of the amount advanced to it by Ministry of Finance to pay for the share about 60 million. Okay. JOHL's share of 2021 third quarter tax paid to GRA of about 16 million. They've made operational expenditure of 740,000, which insurance was 714,000, legal fees 25,000, and financial charges of 1,000.
The rest is in the UK?
Absolutely. It's in JOHL's account, yes.
In the UK?
Yes.
I'll come back to that before we talk about ECG, but let me go for a quick break. When we come back, we'll speak to it briefly and maybe touch on ECG and we'll round up. You're welcome back from the break. We've been talking about allegations of some $100 million missing from GNPC's account. And we are back here. We are back here in the studio with Honorable Member of Parliament for the Secondary Constituency and the Deputy Minister of Energy, Honorable Egyapa Mercer. And so in all of this, minority says they will hold the Minister of Finance before Parliament if you don't repatriate the money.
I await for the day that they will take that action.
When you are on recess now?
Yes.
When are you resuming?
Yes, because that allegation is neither here nor there. And I heard John say that they had employed their external sources to get...
to find out that the money is not in Ghana.
What external
the money
sources?
is in some offshore account.
But for this PIAC report, would you have ever heard Mr. Jinapo on this subject matter? Because there's absolutely nothing that GNPC... Indeed, when they submitted their work program to Parliament for approval in July before we went on recess, all this information was made available to them. They didn't raise a finger, not even an eyebrow. But of course, they see the PIAC report that doesn't really draw a conclusion. And so they want to take advantage and throw dust into the eyes of the Ghanaian public. And I'm waiting for him to see the day that he will hold the Minister of Finance before Parliament.
What will happen?
It's not going to happen. Because there's absolutely no basis in that assertion. And I challenge him that if he has any evidence of some wrongdoing, he should proceed to take the action that he's suggested to the people of Ghana he's going to take.
I'll try as much. I'm sure Honorable Jinapo is watching. I'll try as much as possible to get the two of you
Please.
to sit together. And then I kept asking you even behind the scene that are you not on the same committee?
No, I'm not. I'm not a member of the Mines and Energy. They oversight the Ministry of Energy.
Right,
so
right.
I cannot be a
so
member of the
you
committee.
are not a
Yes.
member, but you have close collaborations.
Absolutely. We work with them all
And
the
so
time.
you all have the same documents that you are speaking to.
Well, I don't know whether he has this JOHL document, but he is very much aware of the transaction that GMPC acquired Anadago's 7% interest in Jubilee and 10% in JOHL. He's very much aware.
So you're watching us from wherever you are. We are live from our studios here at Ridge in Accra. And we've been talking about the energy sector issues that have been on the airwaves lately. I am supposed to round up, but too many messages coming up. I'll try and read them. Let me ask the Honorable Minister my very last question. What's happening at ECG?
It's an issue.
Why are we queuing at? We saw the tweet from Honorable Sam George. My
Yes.
producer says I shouldn't read it because he's pulled it down.
Well, that was the point that I was going to make as well, that he himself has pulled it down because his allegation was pretty wild. My understanding is that the ECG system got compromised. They are investigating to determine the root cause. The compromise affected their backup system as well. So that's how come, for the first time in my own lifetime, I haven't seen any such issue with ECG and its billing system and the vending software that they use that then enables our cherished consumers to go out there and purchase electricity. But the problem has been fixed. It's being rolled
The
out
system got
incrementally. I said compromise. I don't know the nature of what the
They
compromise
haven't reported
was.
to you yet?
But they're doing a root cause analysis. You can't just determine off the
But
cuff.
immediately you will know that the system is hacked or not, so that you try remedial activities. So
I will see,
did the system,
you like putting words.
Was the system
Or
hacked? Or
you don't try to extract information from me that you know will never come out. I'm not aware whether
they should report to you
their system
as their
was
minister.
hacked. I'm saying that their system was compromised, and they are investigating the cause of what led to their inability to service their consumers, who obviously had their own money that they needed to go and buy electricity to load onto their systems. But the problem has been resolved. It's not covered all the vending stations as of yet. They opened their district offices to service consumers. There were long queues in some places. Unfortunately, the management of ECG have come out to apologize to the good people of this country for the mishap. They're going to put in steps based on the root cause analysis that
Some
they
of
do
us thought Doomso
to
was coming
determine.
up.
Oh no, not at all.
You have spoken about
The days
financial
of
issues.
the days of Doomso are over. Even in the midst of the challenges that we're facing as a country with respect to our economy, the lights are still on.
Honorable Egyapa Mercer is a member of parliament for the Secondary Constituency, Deputy Energy Minister. A very good one at that. And he's an outstanding minister, if I should say. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.